At the March 30th, 2020 board meeting, the West Geauga Board of Education approved a resolution to suspend portions of certain bylaws which were not consistent with board meetings by telephone conference or video conference. The second resolution was passed on December 14th, 2020, extending the board's ability to meet via electronic means until July 1st, 2021. This resolution ensures compliance with amended substitute House Bill 197 as extended by the passage of HB 404. At this time, the Board of Education will continue its meetings by telephone conference, video conference, or other similar technologies. This meeting is a meeting of the West Geauga Local School District Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the West Geauga Local School District's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Please use the chat room function located at the bottom of the webpage if you would like to be recognized for public participation. I get a roll call.
Mr. Ramey?
Here.
Ms. Leavenworth?
Yes.
Dr. Beers?
Here.
Mr. Thorson?
Here.
Mr. Katowski? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, there you go. Jim, do your thing. Rise for the pledge, please. Oh. I pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Man, I hate it when this thing goes full screen. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, there we are. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
And a roll call.
Dr. Beers?
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth?
Yes.
Mr. Ramey?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Okay, and I think our first presentation is by Nancy Benincasa and Amy Davis about summer remediation plans.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So Amy and I are going to present to you just a few slides with some generalized outlines of our extended learning plan. So I'm looking at several different screens over here. So if I'm not looking straight at the camera, understand that I'm looking at you in my mind's eye. But during a February 9th, 2021 press conference this year, Governor DeWine has asked schools to create an extended learning plan to help students who may have been negatively infected by the coronavirus pandemic. So he offered in that press conference some ideas for schools, which included things like beginning the new year earlier, extending the school year later into the summer, extending hours into the school day, summer programming, tutoring, remote options. All of these things could be considered as part of an extended learning plan. For West Geauga, unlike many school districts across the state, we have been able to be in school for in-person instruction since September 8th for 5 days a week learning by choice. Additionally, by utilizing some cautious returns from break and elevated cleaning protocols, social distancing, periodic virtual learning options, we have been able to maintain that in-person instruction for what we hope to be and can be the remainder of the school year through a diligent work of our staff and our teachers. And we're really grateful to them for that. And it also has a generalized impact on what we feel like are several of the major and foundational components of this extended learning plan. If you stay right here, Jim, for me for a minute. The plan itself is denoted by Governor DeWine with a need for a great deal of flexibility. And so these are the major elements of the plan as he outlined them for school districts across the state. First, impacted students. There's a need to serve those kids who have a need for additional services due to a variety of reasons based in the pandemic. We're looking at those impacted students through some testing data, teacher and parent input of student progress, social emotional concerns as we've identified them in the school district, classroom assessment data, and feedback from our professional learning communities. We also are looking at the needs of our particular students in terms of skill regression. For some of our high school students, that could be credit recruitment, social emotional support and need that some of our students are experiencing and showing us. And we're also looking at it in terms of our resources and budgets moving forward. So later I'm going to talk to you very broadband about some of the ESSER funds, the elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds that have been provided to school districts, some of the use of our own general funds and student wellness dollars that we're looking to use for some of the elements of this extended learning plan. We're going to talk to you tonight about some of our approaches that are independent to West Geauga, that with some immediacy as some spring tutoring that's happening as we speak, summer programming that we have planned, some tutoring and additional staffing in years moving forward. Also, partnerships are an element of the plan that Governor DeWine outlined. We're going to talk to you about some of those that we have worked to establish in the past few years and will capitalize on moving forward. And also the alignment, the plan should align to what we already have in place that has been met with success, our restart plan, our wellness plan, graduation plans, and just in general, our current work in promoting best instructional practices for our children. So as we design these, we're looking for some immediate programming and programming broadband. Again, the name of the game of this is flexibility. The governor highlighted the need for flexibility in the plan. As we continue to learn more about our students' need, we make changes constantly in the plan. And so we're going to talk to you in real time about what it looks like today and reiterate to you that as our student needs dictate, those changes might be coming as often as we need to make them. Right now, we have summer programming planned for the elementary and middle school students. We have 2 sessions that we are targeting to help with some skills remediation as we identify them and some of the data points I talked to you about earlier. For our high school students, we're running 2 options this summer. Our traditional credit recoupment, Mr. Kish runs that traditional summer school programming for online credit recovery. That will still run in much the same way because we have children at the high school level that are still looking to recoup some credits or garner credits moving forward in their high school programming, and also a secondary option, which would be individualized based on student need, that would be targeted to individual courses and skills that students need as we identify them at West G. Our prioritized funding areas moving ahead are spring tutoring. That's happening right now as we speak. It's targeted tutoring in areas where we have identified some deficiencies for individual students. Summer programming, as I've just highlighted that, and some additional funding moving ahead targeted to tutoring and staffing for tutoring. The idea behind those 2 elements that work in concert is that as we move forward, we have very particular needs and we can identify them based in both course content and skill development for students. And so we let those student needs guide us, and then we staff and fund accordingly. So those are targeted areas that we leave open, but again, students and need will dictate how we utilize those. And also we have a line item for staffing for social and emotional health and student need in that capacity as well. Amy's going to talk a little bit about the social emotional learning components.
Good evening, everybody. As you know, we have dedicated quite a bit of time and attention to the social emotional health and learning of our students over the past several years. We've increased our supports both proactively and reactively because of numerous circumstances that have impacted the district, including basic alignment to best practices, response to student needs, as well as COVID-related circumstances and some other unexpected events. We've benefited greatly from our partnerships with the ESC of the Western Reserve, as well as Ravenwood, for provision of really whole student services, as well as wraparound and professional development. Looking at our summer supports, they will be, as Nancy mentioned, individualized based on need. If we look at elementary and middle school programming, we have current services that will extend through the summer, which is a real benefit for continuity and readiness for that next school year. We have therapeutic behavior support through Ravenwood, and they will be involved with our summer academic programming, the in-person services for the elementary and middle school. So we will base that on data and referrals from our building teams, which are comprised of teachers, our county partner, and Ravenwood building principals, counselors, and others. So some of this will include home visits. Some of it will take place at the site of our summer school. And some of it will be done remotely based on what's easiest and best for the families and students. The high school summer programming will be a little bit more innovative. Some of our highest need students are not in person right now. So we have had success with some of the online and Zoom services. And with some, we're partnering with Job and Family Services and the courts. So some of those services will be mandated through those entities as well. As we look ahead to the next several years with social emotional learning, the left-hand side of the slide is largely a list of things that we already have in place that are foundational to what we're providing. The wellness funds have largely taken care of this. So we are fortunate that we will not incur a lot of additional costs with those services, but it definitely bears pointing out because this has been truly the work of all staff to provide a lot of these services. We have implemented the second step curriculum, which is a social emotional learning curriculum, kindergarten through 8th grade. We have guidance counselors in every building. Every Friday, we have what we call a care team meeting, where it's a multidisciplinary team that meets to discuss students that are difficult and kind of tricky, I would say, either because they're virtual or family circumstances, or we just need help troubleshooting. And that feeds into a larger care team that is more of a county situation. As I mentioned before, our partnerships with the ESC of the Western Reserve and Ravenwood have been hugely beneficial. And they have partnered with us to help provide professional development for staff, as well as the parent education series that we've been able to provide. In fact, we do have one this week that Ravenwood is providing for parents. We also have some targeted programming for students, a lot of it based on building leadership, community, and understanding and tolerance of one another. But as we look at the right-hand side of the screen, we are asking for some more social work services in order to meet the heightened need. We need to help students with executive functioning, that meaning how they approach learning, organization, What do you do if you fall behind? Where do I find my work? That kind of thing, because we have found it to be a huge impediment, particularly at the secondary level, for students to succeed. We're also looking at more curriculum and professional development in the area of trauma-informed care and education of our students. Thank you.
So in the next two slides, I'm going to speak very quickly about how we've currently earmarked the federal funding, again, the elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds for this current school year and the next two subsequent school years. At this point, we have earmarked the line items for spring tutoring and summer programming, which I've spoken to you about. For the fiscal year 22, our next school year, we have line itemed tutoring and psychologist and remediation tutoring. So tutoring, those monies are specific to tutoring and dollars that some of our own staffing are providing for students. And remediation tutoring, that would be additional staffing required. Also, technology and physical plan improvements. These ESSER funds are also allowed in terms of some facility needs that we might have associated with HVAC, windows and doors, things, air quality. And so we've earmarked some funding in the next year for that. ESSER 3 funding, a second round of funding, which would be primarily spent in fiscal year 23, the year after next. You see some of these same line items: tutoring, the psychologist, the remediation tutoring, digital programming, and the HVAC physical plan improvements. Again, there are a lot of asterisks, particularly that far forward, fiscal year 23. As I've probably said the word flexibility several times with great intent. The plan needs to be flexible, has to be flexible. We want it to be flexible because ultimately the funding will be spent based in student need as the district determines it. Even the way that we turn this learning plan in to the state is through a website link. That means that we can update it as we see fit in real time. We're not resubmitting it, pardon me, to the state every single time we update it. We're simply updating it to match student need. I have to reiterate one more time, because we have been in person since September 8th and running 5 days a week, we are in a different, I think, situation than many districts are. We are not trying to close broadband learning gaps. Rather, we are able to look at very, very targeted, individualized student need and attention. And so it belies the way that we spend the funds are matching that need. So because we really have done a great job being in person and having, as I hesitate to use the term normal, a school year, but at least an in-person school year, because of the caution that we have taken in our approach to the year, the way that the learning plan reads is very individualized and intended to be such. So that is the plan as it stands now. We will, by April 1, turn in a link for a website link that has the plan, this presentation, and also a written plan that will be updated in real time and can change as we deem student learning. We still have, as you know, several data points. I mean, we're not to the end of a school year yet, so we still have state testing coming. We have our end of course MAP assessments. We have common assessment work. We have individual professional learning community input from our teachers and parents. So there are a lot of data points that we have not yet collected, and those data points will go in and help to form plans moving forward and address needs as we are able to identify them. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about our extended learning plan as it stands of today, March 29th. It will change as we move forward and student need dictates. And Amy, I appreciate the opportunity to share it with you.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
could just jump in real quickly. There are a couple things I'd like the board to carry away from this. First of all, I don't know that any of us said what ESSER means, and I know sometimes we speak educationese to folks, but I had to look it up myself to make sure. It says the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. These are dollars that come to schools to address the needs of students associated with learning losses from the pandemic. And one of the things I'd like to point out that the presentation that you just heard tonight highlighted was the fact that we're taking sort of a triage approach here. What you're seeing done this summer is an attempt to meet the most serious academic and social emotional needs of our students. But as you notice, this extends a couple years into the future, so that you're talking about fiscal year 22, fiscal year 23. And there, what you'll see is a more individualized approach, so that we're actually broadening the net and we're honing in on these specific needs of individual students throughout that time. So it's not a one-time shot fixes everything. This is something which is a serious long-term investment where we're trying to build programs that are going to benefit not only the students who are the most adversely affected by the pandemic, but any students who we feel the need to extend learning, whether that be the students that are struggling or be the students who are at the top of their learning curve and are some of our brightest and best. So it is a long-term commitment. I think it will result in a long-term advancement of our programs and extending of the programs. And I really want to thank Nancy and Amy, because they're the ones who put together, especially this first step of it. They outlined it for the next 2 years into the future. But this summer, when we really need to help the students who've, for whatever reason, struggled most during the pandemic and fallen behind, we have measures in place to assist them. And as Nancy noted, I believe at the beginning of her presentation, I think because we've been able to keep our schools open this year with the assistance of our staff and the support of the Board of Education, it has certainly helped us to hopefully minimize the academic losses that our students have sustained from COVID-19. So with that, I'll be quiet.
So Rich, a question.
Oh, hey, Ben.
Thank you. How does this address the money which we have spent? I mean, I take it this is money going forward, and the $1 million plus that the COVID mitigation efforts have cost us, we're not going to see anything for that. We're simply absorbing that. We have to.
Yes.
Is that correct? Or?
Ben, where we've seen some money, as you know, we received some COVID relief funds. That was $97,000. We received ESSER funds. That was $137,000. We've used that money to offset some of the expenditures that we've had. The personnel cost, we've had almost $1 million in personnel cost that we've added for custodial staff, additional staff that we've needed in teaching, to keep our classrooms small. I mean, a variety of costs there that we've absorbed those costs this year. So that's something that we just absorbed this year. As we go forward, so the first ESSER 1 funding has been spent, all of that's been allocated, all that money has been spent. ESSER 2, we received a $491,000 approval through the ESSER 2 funds. That's what Nancy's talking about, doing the spring tutoring, the summer programming that we have identified. We're going to buy, as you know, we talked about purchasing our laptops early this year because of the shortage. That will come out, that's about $120,000 of that money will be spent as well. So through the summer tutoring, spring tutoring, and that we will probably spend that $491,000 relatively quickly. We have not received our allocation for ESSER 3 yet. It's estimated to be 2.4 times what we received for ESSER 2, but as you know, we haven't got those funds yet. So we're waiting to hear about those. The state is also in a holding pattern of reimbursing us for expenditures that we have because they haven't passed legislation to allow them to reimburse them. They have spent their appropriation already, so they had to go back to increase that appropriation. So we expect those funds to be there. Now, if they're less than 1 million or more than 1 million, we'll make those adjustments that Nancy is, looking at that. But she and Amy have been very diligent in deciding what targeted services our kids needed. They didn't go crazy, which, and say we need, 17 teachers and, 42 staff to support. They were very targeted because we don't have as much as some other people. I had was talking with someone yesterday on Friday. They received $14 million. Boardman received $14 million in ESSER funding. So the ESSER funding is determined by our Title I funding. So we have a low Title I funding, and so we didn't receive as much as some other districts that may have a higher Title I funding. So we're trying to use that and make it last as long as possible, put in programs that will be multi-year programs. So that's why we have been very cautious in how we're spending that. But like you said, we've already spent money. A lot of that money we ate this year, so we'll have to see what we can sustain going forward. And that's what we're working on now with the budget. Nancy and Rich are tired of seeing me and talk about, what does next year look like? What does next year look like? I need to know because we are trying to decide what our staffing needs are, what our plant needs are, what our supplies are, all those things. So we are anxiously waiting for next year.
I just like to say congratulations. I mean, good presentation, and thank you so much for your work on putting this together and on caring for our kids the way that you do. I think that we're extremely fortunate that we were able to stay open. Thank you to the teachers and to our staff and to our being able to have the wherewithal to pay for the cleaning and the custodial staff, because I've talked with a lot of other districts and a lot of other people that have been virtual either the whole time or, sometime on, sometime off. And I think even though we've got kids that are suffering, we're a lot further ahead of the game than, and it's not a game, but we're in vernacular, we're a lot further ahead than many are, because we've been able to have our kids in the building and with teachers face to face or mask to mask. And thank you all so much for making that be possible.
Well put. Okay, any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Let's see, I believe we have one person signed up in the chat to address the board.
Yep, we have Bernie Mandel.
So can
Bernie,
you,
you want to unmute yourself?
there you go. Well,
Okay,
I think so.
I hope so. I want, aside from my 15 minutes, 5 minutes, I guess, without going into that, it's been a long time since I faced the board, and I've got to tell you that I left when I stopped coming to meetings and so forth, my heart was always the school system, and the board did a fantastic job. And I've got to tell you something, that they're still carrying on. You're all doing a fantastic job, and I really appreciate it. You're just great for our community. And what I'm going to say tonight, by the way, is not directed at anybody. It has no personal meanings here, but it's really good to see all of you. So I hope I can come back again sometime. So can I start, or?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right.
Already did.
It's difficult for me to keep to a time schedule, so I had to write it out. I'm here tonight to speak about club sports, namely baseball, football, and soccer. Unfortunately, our community here has a limited number of venues to practice and to play. I'm here to talk about outdoor club sports. I want to make that clear, not indoor, because there is a difference. Outdoor sports are not played in a confined area, unlike basketball and volleyball, which I understand volleyball is being played indoors right now. Outdoors, there's no need to sanitize things. There's no ventilation problem. And we follow a CDS mandated or suggested things to be careful. Club sports have historically used school property at Lindsay and the high school. I'm on a board at the Commons. By the way, the school board has refused or prohibited these club sports from using school property. I'm on the board of the Commons. I have been for many, many years. Last year, the same situation we have now arose. There are not enough fields to accommodate all of these sports, the club sports that we have in this community. They came to us, they requested use of the Commons, football in particular, Lions football. And we don't allow practicing at the Commons. We get about $60,000 in tax money, and every penny of that, and even more, is spent on maintaining the field. So we're very careful about using the fields. We don't allow practicing. But because of the situation, we said, hey, we don't want to let these kids go and lose a year of sports in their lives. It's important. It's just as important as a schoolroom in some aspects. And we didn't want to see these students go by the wayside and lose that opportunity. A lot of these kids couldn't play in school on school teams, and this was their outlet for socializing, for learning sports, and it's just something that should be part of every kid's life. There was a massive scheduling problem, but everybody cooperated, and we did field teams. We did get teams going on a limited basis. We still didn't have enough fields to accommodate everybody. It appears that in an overabundance of caution, the school board, on the advice of the superintendent, as I understand it, elected to do so. In other words, they prohibited us from, or its clubs from using it. This decision was really inconsistent with current facts, the recommendations of the CDS, the state of Ohio, and indeed the very actions of the West Geauga schools. Schools have been in person in class for a whole year now, or since last September. The board allowed its own sports teams to play and practice indoors, which is not what we're asking for. The state of Ohio, on its website, directly addresses club sports. The state itself recognizes there's a problem with club sports and sets forth suggestions as to masks and social distancing and so forth. The state does not prohibit club sports, it only suggests how it should be run. We've attempted to survey other schools and systems in the district, and it was amazing what we found out, that Kenston uses township parks and school property for the overflow. Mayfield uses schools and parks. Shaker Heights uses school property. Chagrin Falls uses school property. Solon uses school property. So they've all recognized this, and they've decided that there's a lot less problems having sports outdoors, not confined, and they all allow it. Superintendent Marquardt said that he'd contacted the Geauga Health Department. I also contacted them, and our emails, the one email that I got back from Tom Quaid said, Superintendent Marquardt and I have had many conversations about the health and safety issues related to COVID-19, and I have told him many times that I support his decisions that serve to protect the health of the population. Now that's interesting in one respect, because you can't deal with all situations globally. You know, each situation is different. Outdoor conditions are not similar to indoor. There's no close connection with the players, or so it's an entirely different thing. You can't do it, just lay down blanket decisions on everything. It isn't a situation where one size fits all. We at the Commons, and indeed Clay Eddy Fields, are working with the club sports, but there is a need for additional venues to conduct a full program. There are more than, believe it or not, there's more than 600 kids, 600 students, 600 young people that participate in these club sports. That's an amazing number for a community our size. We're concerned that they will lose a year of their sports lives. For your information, I would like to read some of the rules. It's interesting, some of the rules that we follow and mandate if they use the Commons. For example, we put all participants, when not participating in practice, must wear masks and observe social distancing. That's even part of the suggestions of the state. Coaches must use their best efforts to see that all spectators observe wearing masks and social distancing. That's spectators now. Any spectator refusing to do so must leave the area. If they refuse, then practice must be stopped. Last year at the Commons, I actually did that. I actually went out and handed out free masks to the kids that didn't have masks. And there was only one parent that was obstinate and refused to leave. And I told her, you're going to shut down the game. We're just going to stop. I mean, we took this serious. We take this serious. This isn't just give us fields we want to play. We do take it seriously. We sincerely care about the health and welfare of our students. We believe that use of the fields by sports clubs with proper cautions will not add any additional problems because of the pandemic. We're talking about mostly students already attending in-person classes, and using outdoor fields is not, we want to use outdoor fields and not enclosed spaces. And we can only urge you to reconsider your decision and to do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do. And that basically is I have printouts of the state mandates and everything else if you want it. But that's basically what I have to say. And it's been a pleasure really talking to you. And you do whatever, whatever you think is best. I trust every one of you, even you, Dr. Marquardt. It's okay. I don't, there's nothing personal in this. I'm just looking out. If you know me well, I was president of the soccer league for 18 years, and I have a passion for these kids. I really do. And I don't want to see them cheated. What we're asking for is not going to add any more problems than we already have. We've done a fantastic job in Geauga County. The school board, again, I got to compliment all of you. You've done a fantastic job, and it's great to see Kathy and Dr. Thorenson and Chad, what did I miss? And Dr. Bill Beers. I'm glad I could see your smiling faces, and God bless you. God bless you all, and good health. Stay warm and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Yeah, thanks for your dedication, Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie, we don't normally address the concerns people bring up in the meetings, because that's something that extends meetings it's quite a lengthy time. But just a thank you for everything you've done. I mean, Bernie, you've done so much for both the schools and for Geauga Commons and for the team sports. So thanks, Bernie.
It's okay. I'm happy to do it. It makes me feel good. And at my age, I haven't got too many more years to do
Yeah,
good.
you do. Yeah, you're going to outlive us all, Bernie.
Right,
I'm gonna be 88 in July.
Wow.
Oh,
Getting up there. And here I thought when I moved to the community, I would only be involved in stuff for 2 or 3 years, and that's it.
Thanks
It's good.
again.
And
Good to see you, Bernie.
Kathy, it's good to hear your dog barking, Kathy. So long, people.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, Bernie.
Bye, Bernie.
How do I get out of this thing, Jim?
I will just, I'll mute you, Bernie.
No, I think just now, I want to listen to some more of this.
Yeah, just I'll mute you and you can just stay right on the meeting, okay?
Okay, thank you.
But
Okay.
I don't see anybody else in the chat room, so you can
Okay.
move on.
Routine items.
Resolution 111 to approve routine matters of the West Geauga Local Board of Education to include the February 21st, 2021 financial statements, the minutes, certified and classified substitute list.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Katsowski,
yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers.
Yes.
Resolution 112 to approve warrants for the February 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? It's a particularly boring topic. Roll call?
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski.
Yes.
Resolution 113 to approve the decrease in the fiscal year 2021 appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Roll call?
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth.
Yes.
Resolution 114 to approve the amendment to the 403B plan for the hardship distribution interim amendment.
So move.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey.
Yes.
Resolution 115 to approve the amendment to the flexible spending account. This will increase the contribution amount for married couples to $10,500 and singles $5,250 for the dependent care flexible spending account only.
So moved.
Second.
Are those new limits, IRS limits or something?
Yes, they're
Okay.
allowing, they allowed under the American Rescue Plan Act to increase that just for the dependent care because more people might have additional daycare that they would have to incorporate this year. So it's for 1 year only.
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson.
Yes.
Resolution 116 to approve the amendment to the student activity statement of purpose and budget for the 2021 school year for the National Honor Society to increase $500.
So moved. Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers.
Yes.
Resolution 117 to accept the donation from RMS Power Inc. For $20,000 for the West Geauga High School STEAM grant.
So move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms.
Right.
Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski.
Yes.
Dr. Marquardt, you take it from there.
Thank you. I'd just like to note that that last donation was one of many generous donations we received from RMS Empower, and it's just, they've been tremendous supporters of our school. Personnel resolutions. Resolution 118 is to approve an administrative staff appointment. This is for an assistant transportation supervisor, Lisa Bryant. And after the board makes a motion prior to the vote, Sean, would you like to introduce us to Lisa and her resume? And I don't know if she's on tonight's meeting, Zoom or not.
So move.
Second,
Lisa was not able to join us, but I'm recommending highly Lisa Bryant for the position of Assistant Transportation Supervisor. It's very hard in transportation to get people with longevity and talent. Lisa started off in Austintown Local Schools in 2005 to 2016 as an onboard instructor and bus driver. She worked 2012 to 2016 as a consultant training drivers from other districts and private companies. From 2016 till now, she's worked at Youngstown Local Schools as an assistant administrator and training coordinator. She's assisted in creating bus routes, overseen the training of hired and current applicants and current staff to ensure compliance with state and federal laws and acquiring proper licenses and certificates. She's supervised and evaluated all bus drivers and provided additional training when necessary to ensure consistency in operation and procedures, which is pretty critical. She's worked with the mechanics and drivers to ensure that all vehicles are in safe operating conditions, meeting with state and federal laws. Responded to bus accidents, making sure all protocols are being followed. We're proud to have her join us based on board approval as our new Assistant Transportation Supervisor. I know she will be an excellent addition to the team.
I'd like to thank Sean for finding her. I'd also like to comment that I think she'll make a very good partner for Cheryl at the bus garage. And I think that she will offer Cheryl some much needed assistance in the supervision of the program. So it's very fortuitous for us that we were able to find someone with her range of experience.
congratulations.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Rainey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth.
Yes,
Resolution 119 is to accept a classified staff resignation.
so move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes,
Mr. Rainey.
Yes.
Resolution 120 is to approve supplemental contracts for the 2020-2021 school year.
so move.
Second.
Questions? Roll call.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes,
Mr. Rainey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson.
Yes.
Resolution 121 is to authorize the award of a service contract for the 2020-2021 school year.
So move.
second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes,
Mr. Rainey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers.
Yes.
Next section gets a little bit confusing here because we have two groups of policies moving before the board for the 3 readings simultaneously. So Resolution 122 is to approve the first reading of new board policy 1615 and revised board policies that are listed in the agenda of the board meeting. These are the first of 3 readings.
So move.
second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Leavenworth,
Yes,
Mr. Rainey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski.
Yes.
Resolution 123, not to be confused with 122, is a resolution to approve the second reading of new board policy 7530.02 and the revised board policies that are listed in the agenda.
so move.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rainey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth.
Yes,
Thank you.
Resolution 124 is one of my favorite euphemistic resolutions because it is the resolution to approve the 2021 Summer Opportunities Program, which is another word for summer school.
So move.
second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey.
Yes. Okay, take it away, Rich.
All right. Just a few things I'd like the board to be aware of tonight. First of all, today was our first day back from spring break, and unlike our Thanksgiving break and our winter break, we did not have a remote start or a gradual start back to school after the break. Our students came back today, and we were greeted with a COVID count, an active count of 0 students and 0 staff. That's the first time we have been at a count of 0 active cases in many, many months. So we're very, very happy for that. It's especially good for us because we're right now entering the month of April, and April is a high stakes month for us because April is the month when the state of Ohio assesses our academic achievement and notifies us of both our programmatic and also our individual students' strengths and weaknesses. So it's a very, very important month for attendance. We want healthy kids and we want them in school for the month of April if they're attending school in person, if they're part of that that group of our 80% of the students who do. It's an important month for all of our kids because all of our kids get assessed at this time, but it's particularly important that we have students able to come into school to take the tests. There are several things that I think warrant mentioning right now with regard to the Newberry campus because we've had some developments there that have been routine and some others that were not quite routine. Our wetland study is concluded, so you're going to be hearing a bit about the results of that study as well as the environmental study, which is now in phase 2. We have planned for Mr. Hollister to present to the board on behalf of the Newmark Company at the next board meeting, which would be April 12th. And there you will have a better idea of where we are in the process of determining highest and best use opportunities for the Newberry campus. Also, there's been another unforeseen circumstance with Newberry that I think warrants mentioning for the board because it's kept some of our maintenance and custodial staff rather busy. We experienced several roof leaks in the larger building with the melting of the snow. So the cafeteria right now is covered with a lot of sheets because what we discovered was that some of the roof repairs that were done were temporary in nature. So that we found a lot of tarps and a lot of plastic meant to hold water. But right now there are several portions of the building that have sustained quite a bit of water coming in as a result of the melting snow on the roofs. The cafeteria was the hardest hit. So we're in the process of patching those as we can, but we found that some of the causes are pretty significant causes. That's in the larger of the 2 buildings. So we're working on that. It's kept our guys busy. If you drive by there and you'll oftentimes see West Geauga trucks at the building, it's because we're trying to do our best to maintain the buildings in a way that preserves the appearance of the buildings in such a way that we don't see the buildings deteriorating. We want to make sure that while they're standing that they're maintained. So we're doing our best to do that. So that completes my report.
That's got to be hard though, Rich, because we don't want to put, if they're going to be demolished. I mean, we've come pretty close to making those decisions, but we're waiting to find out. We don't want to put very much money into.
We can't. What we're doing is actually band-aiding the issues with the roof right now.
Yeah.
What we discovered was that a lot of the coating that was put on the roof was that silver coating, which is customarily used on modular homes.
Wow.
So we experienced that. And then also under the roof proper, before you get to the drop ceilings, et cetera, there were a lot of tarps utilized and some plastic. So they were very, very temporary repairs and they won't last very long.
Yeah.
So as you say, the condition of that building, we're discovering the more layers of the onion we peel back in that building, the more serious the problems are.
Wow.
The smaller building is not in as rough a shape as the larger one.
The smaller building being the building with the auditorium and the
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Do we have any board reports tonight? I have not been notified of any.
I was just asked to report on, and I'm sorry that none of my fellow board members from West Geauga participated today. although I sent you all a personal invitation. In the Fair School Funding Plan meeting that we had at 1 o'clock today with Senator Serino, I was asked by the staff at OSBA if I would be willing to participate as a school board member. They were trying to, back a month or so ago, get as many teams of superintendents, treasurers, and school board members to come together in each Senate district, Ohio Senate district, to meet with their senators to promote House Bill 1, which is the Fair School Funding Plan. Finally, I mean, an equitable funding plan that is the result of the Patterson, our good friend John Patterson, who's been working on this for a long time. So I said yes, that I would be glad to do that. And I got together with Michael Hanlon, who is the superintendent of Chardon Schools, George Joseph, who is the superintendent of Kent Schools, and two treasurers, Craig and I'm blanking, Karen, Gary, Platka,
Gary.
Riverside, and Ravenna, and we were we moved very quickly. I think the team of the OSBA and BASA, the Buckeye superintendents, and the OASBO were a little taken aback that we already had a plan 2 days after they asked us to come together. But we had contacted Senator Serino, and we set up a time, which was today, for him to meet with us. We had a script that the superintendents and treasurers followed, and the superintendent from Madison, Angela.
Angela.
Yeah, presented a short but very effective, I thought, kind of presentation as far as her view as a superintendent. I was asked to give some background as far as my lifelong experience as a school board member and what I've seen over the years. Karen and Nancy and Rich were all in attendance. Thank you very much for being there. And I thought that the senator was attentive and listening, and definitely saying he's new. He's just started in January, so he's willing to listen, and hopefully he will be willing to. The House has already moved this through, and we are hoping that the Senate will comply finally after decades of not funding our schools adequately at all. With back in the 70s, House Bill 920, and then the all of the other issues, we've been told that our schools are not funded. It's unconstitutional the way our schools are funded, but the legislature has chosen not to do anything about that. I was a little distressed. I don't know, Nancy and Karen and Rich, if you stayed on, but Senator Serino made some comments about school counselors toward the end of the meeting, and he indicated that he had met with a school counselors group, and that he was surprised to learn that we had a student counselor ratio of somewhere in the area of 350 to 400, which none of us were surprised about at all. But he was surprised, and he was berating us for not, and acting, in my mind, almost as though, do you guys know that you really need to have counselors who are helping the students? And and I felt a real need. As you all know, I'm not reluctant to speak up, but I did say to him, I need to take a little umbrage and get with your, because it sounded as though, as a businessman, he was not only surprised, but also like this is something you guys ought to be paying attention to. Like, hey, I've been around for 40 years. I've been worrying about this for years. I mean, it's something we know about, but I said, we have to pay for, we've paid now this year close to $1 million for cleaning our buildings and for custodians and for, where's the money to pay for these counselors? We're not Hawken or University School, so we really need to help our legislators get the program and understand that, yeah, we know what we need. We just don't have the dollar. We've got to keep school open. We've got to teach the courses. We've got to, and unfortunately, counseling is important, as we all know how important it is. But, and we want to have our kids counseled, and they need it day to day. They need it to prepare for college, to prepare for work, to prepare for their next step after they graduate. But I think we all need to help our senators and representatives understand where we are and what we're doing and what we all know. And they are, some of them, just learning. So thank you for being there. Thank you for letting me share this and vent. And I'm willing to answer, glad to answer any questions.
Please vent.
Thank you, Kathy. I had asked Kathy, I wanted Kathy to present to the board tonight what had happened today, because she represented not only West G, but all of Ohio so well. Kathy's one of those people who has the knack of delivering somewhat harsh truths sometimes in a very gentle manner, and she exercised that ability today with the senator. Just to be clear, also his comments, I think, were based upon the fact that the state requires one guidance counselor for every 500 students in a district. And what he was saying was he was surprised to find that many districts in the state have one guidance counselor for 350 to 400 kids, which is pretty much the norm. And I just want to make clear, he wasn't directing that at West Geauga as a criticism. He was saying basically statewide, he thought there should be more guidance counselors to help kids with he was particularly addressing the need to recruit students for Ohio's workforce. That was what he was looking at it from a career perspective. And certainly that's one of the elements of counseling, but as we know, counselors do much more than guide students into careers or colleges and universities. They also do a great deal with the social emotional health of students and perform a valuable function for us. He was wanting to work in Ohio colleges too.
You know, one other thing that I was aware of, that he did mention Chagrin Falls several times, and while I agree with that having had a husband who managed the Smythe Kramer office of realtors in Chagrin Falls, and knowing that oftentimes their realtors would steer people away from West Geauga into Chagrin Falls, saying the Chagrin Falls schools are so much better than West Geauga, we all knew that West Geauga was doing everything as well as Chagrin Falls. We just didn't sell it as well. And he's obviously heard that, and he knows that. And I'm not trying to undervalue or underrate Chagrin Falls at all, because we all know they're a good school system. But we are right up there with Chagrin Falls, and I think that we need to take that to account and to realize that you know, here's somebody who is from, where's he from? Riverside, and he lives in kind of the northern part of our district. He's got a big family. What did he say? 7 or 8 kids that he's got, and a whole bunch of grandkids, and they all pretty much live in the district. So he's got a lot of family around, but you know, its perception is a lot. And what advertising does, and what the word is that gets out there. So we're everybody's good at. I used to fight with a lot of the realtors from Smythe Kramer. It's like, don't be undermining West G. You know, hey, just because you live in Chagrin doesn't make them better than West G. So be proud. We're doing a great job. And anyway, I just wanted to, thanks Rich for asking me to step forward and share that. Hopefully you'll all jump on and maybe even send a note to Senator Serino asking him to support this bill.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy, when does it come up that,
It's not, they're going to, who knows what's going to happen, Bill? I mean, they may, the Senate needs to look at it. They may send it back to the House. You know, it's, as he said, it's the old sausage making.
yeah, but it's not like they're going to vote on it in the next week, so we have to hurry.
No, not at all. It's going to take, in fact, when the OSBA and BASA and OASBO came together, they wanted us to try and have this meeting before the end of March and then a follow-up meeting and, to continue to pursue this. It doesn't sound like the Senate is going to move on it at all. I don't think that. It sounded like, from what I had heard, that Matt Dolan, who lives here but represents the Chagrin and Solon and other, that he's been kind of vacillating and playing politician with not coming out and totally supporting it. But we just need to work on them and to promote, as I said, when House Bill 920 passed back in 1976, which stopped us from having any increased amount coming due to inflation. So the only additional dollars that we get are for the inside millage and new construction millage. It stopped us totally from realizing any additional funds for inflation. And then that was 45 years ago. And when DeWolf passed in 1999, that was 22 years ago. So we saying that funding is unconstitutional. I mean, it's been decades that Ohio has been living with not funding our schools properly, and that has been declared by the Supreme Court over and over and over again that it's unconstitutional. So it's well past time. As I said at the end, I untie our hands.
It was a good line.
Yeah.
Kathy, you mentioned a follow-up meeting?
Yeah, it hasn't been set yet. I'll let you know. Thanks, Ben.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments about that? Thanks again, Kathy.
Thank you, Chet.
And the board will now, I'll get a resolution to adjourn to executive session for personnel matters consisting of appointment and or employment and discipline, and for negotiations.
Will we vote on anything coming out, Chet?
We will not. There will be no action when we return.
Okay.
Beat me to it.
I so move.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Katowski,
Yes.
Ms. Leavenworth,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorsey.
Yes.
All right, Jim, if you can move us into executive session.
And we'd like to invite Eric Johnson and Dr. Benincasa to join us in executive session, please.
And Karen and Rich?
And look, they're the regulars.
Mr. President, I motion to adjourn.
I second.
Roll call.
Mr. Katowski,
You're on mute.
On mute.
everybody's muted.
Everybody.
Yes.
Kathy, you're muted too.
I'm unmuting. Yes, I.
Okay. Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Dr. Beers.
Yes.
Thank you so much today.
Good night.